But yes, welcome to Posing and Composition. Very glad to be here. So just to get some introductions out the way, well, first question. How many people here are photographers? Just raise your hand. Okay. I see a little, okay.
I handed the camera and pushed the button.
I mean, hey, there it is. That's cosplay for you. So how many people are here as cosplayers? Okay, so the majority of you all here for the cosplay and the photography experience. So, well, let's get started. Let me introduce myself. My name is Kyle Williams. I am the photographer behind the world of Gwendana. To give you some background, I'm a senior, or was in a previous life, did senior photography, lifestyle, wedding, engagement photography, and fashion photography. So even before getting into the cosplay scene, I have had, well, at this point it's terrifying to think about 15 years worth of experience as a photographer. I keep thinking, oh yeah, I just started 15 years ago. But cosplay, and at this point it's been 8 years since I started cosplay photography. So, but I've been a hobbyist cosplay photographer since 2016. My specialty is in natural light. I don't use reflectors, I don't use strobes, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I am lazy and I don't want to carry things. So that's what it comes down to. But I am known for my ability to pose and give direction. So my philosophy on posing, really a lot of what I do is directing through hands. So without touching the cosplayer, without moving, doing a lot of like simple, safe posing to start off a shoot. That way I can showcase the cosplay. And let's be honest, we do a lot of stuff for social media, so there is that safe stuff that we do want to have out there. But also doing poses that convey action, movement, storytelling, cinematic framing and composition is a lot of like what I really enjoy doing. And doing detailed photos of costumes, cosplayers, showcasing the cosplayers' works. And for me, a big thing is with posing, it's not necessarily just about like masculine versus feminine posing. It is about the character and the setting is what's going to drive a lot of the posing for a character or for a cosplay. So it went backwards. Cool. So let me try. Apparently it wants me to stay. So let's fix that real quick. Doop, doop, doop. All right, so I will not venture too far from my computer then. That's cool. So what I mean by that, what a character drives posing. So really, there's a lot of characters out here. There's a lot of cosplays out here. We need to understand like what that character is, that character's motivations. That personality type is going to drive how we handle like posing that character, telling that story. So is the character like a powerful hero? Or are they just a crazy, crazy villain like Toga from My Hero Academia? Are they aloof, uncaring? Are they just sort of there? Are they just sort of like a potato? That happens. I've done those shoots. Or are they ethereal beings from like a fantasy world? So really understanding that type of character really starts helping you understand, okay, this is how we should start at least looking at posing, how we want to guide them through the posing process. Now, there's also the idea of setting. I do a lot of different types of photo shoots. I can do sci-fi, I can do lifestyle, I can do fantasy, but really the setting is going to dictate, all right, this is the type of posing that we're going to want to have for this particular character. Some cases I might have an ethereal, like very fantastical being. There might be a Zelda that I'm going to be shooting. I see a Zelda right there. I see there might be like a Mandalorian, as you can see in the example up there, where we need a neutral background, something that conveys very Star Wars, but the posing is going to be very Mandalorian. Or there might be a hero like Cyclops, or they might be something like very beautiful, very ethereal, very fantastical, very out of this world. Or it might even just be slice of life, where it's just like, all right, this is a normal person doing normal things. So cosplay really does run that gamut, and understanding what that setting is going to be. I mean, I've seen it before, but you may or may not have a magical girl in a graffiti-ridden alley. That can happen. That can work. More power to you if you can pull it off. But having that setting in mind will help us with the character or with the posing. So some ways to learn posing. Really understanding what that character's signature move is. Maybe if you look at their TV show, anime, we have like, maybe they just do this. Maybe they do a little heart. Whatever that signature move is, that signature pose is, that's one thing that you can practice. Another thing would be searching for YouTube, or searching on YouTube. And really, I'm not even talking about searching YouTube for cosplay photography posing. Search for photography posing, search for model posing. And just as important, maybe even more important, is to search for poses or how to pose people who are not models. I would say a lot of folks are not models. I've worked with models, they can pose very well, but the vast majority of us get in front of a camera like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Yeah, like, no. So I would say pose, look for posing for people who aren't models, but also study cosplay photo shoots, observe how the photographer is actually guiding through that shoot. What you notice, what strikes you about that. Obviously don't copy, but really just start thinking about, all right, this is interesting how they have the hands like this, but not necessarily like covering your face, that sort of thing. Look at how cosplayers pose. There are a lot of cosplayers out there, a lot of good posing. Really study and understand like how they're posing, what their hand positionings are, what their eyes are looking at, that sort of thing. And for me, do a lot of photo shoots. The less glamorous option, I shoot a lot. You'll see in this PowerPoint how many shoots I've done. I have several photo books that are altogether about this tall, 300 pages each, and that's not counting the work I've done in the past 3 years. So I have a problem. Yay! We're all just, yeah, there are worse problems indeed. But also do your research and ask questions. So research the character, understand their personality and their journey. I might look at Wikipedia for photographers. I shoot so many things, I don't have time to play or watch or read everything that I've shot. But Wikipedia is there. I can figure out their journey pretty quick. I can look on YouTube, find out their journey, what their personality is pretty quick. But also you can find poses that fit that aesthetic that you're going for. Another thing is to create a mood board. That's huge, where you are just look through, whether it be Pinterest, whether it be Instagram, whether it be even Google search, finding those images that inspire you, finding those images that fit the aesthetic of that character, finding the images that interest you, saving that, creating a mood board so you can reference that at any point. For cosplayers, I advocate practicing in front of a mirror. For photographers, one thing I like to do is while I am on a shoot, I will ask a cosplayer about the character. I'll be honest, I don't even have time to do a lot of research, especially at a con. I try. But if it's one of those things where I'm at an event, I see something that's interesting, hey, let me grab a couple of photos. Tell me about this character. Why I do that is, one, it helps break the ice. When I get to a shoot, there have been plenty of times I'm working with somebody new. They don't know me well. I don't know them well. Having that conversation like, hey, how are you doing? Yeah, great. How's the weather up? Like, anything new going on with you? That can be awkward. But asking them about that character, you can see their light up, their eyes light up. It helps break the ice, but it also helps get the cosplayer in the mindset of that cosplay. They start thinking about that time that the character did that one thing that really stood out to them. But also, it gives you an idea of what to work with, and it helps me connect the dots and say, okay, this person said this about this cosplayer. This is what connects that cosplayer to that character. So then I can start feeding off of that energy because I now know this is why they are connected to this character. So that's why I advocate just that break the ice sort of thing. So when it comes to posing, one of the things I hear a lot is, Well, I was working with this photographer. They just didn't say anything. They just took pictures. I mean, have you all run into that where you're just like on a shoot? All right, do I look good? I'm not quite sure. My big thing is do not leave, if you're a photographer, do not leave a cosplayer out on an island. I like to warm up with basic poses. So what I'll usually do is like I tell a cosplayer, hey, turn your hips this way, open your shoulders up, might have like the point their legs, try to walk them through poses so I can start figuring out how well they pose, what their comfort level is with posing. I can start warming up because my brain is, every time I start a shoot, I'm like, wait, how do I take a photo again? I just completely forgot what my camera settings do. But that gives them direction, that establishes that rapport, that starts warming them up as well. Now, I also want to give positive feedback. That's important because that starts giving the cosplayer confidence. Like if they are doing something well, really hone in on that. Say, hey, that looks great. If they're not doing something well, I'm not going to be like, oh, God. I might say, oh, God, because my camera settings are completely jacked up, and I'm like, well, that's completely overexposed, so let me fix that setting real quick. But I'm not going to say, like, this is terrible. I'm going to redirect. Where you're like, okay, that, in my mind, that doesn't work. Let's try the other direction, or let's try another pose. Really start figuring out how they pose, what's going to work with them. When there is no feedback, the cosplayer does become self-conscious. Another thing I'd like to do is what's called mirroring. So really what that means is when I give a pose, I'm going to do the pose. It's going to look absolutely ridiculous, especially if I'm walking with my friend Brooklyn, who's like 4'11", maybe in like some sort of magical girl sort of look, seeing this tall 6'7" muscular dude just trying to do the daintiest little pose. You know what? I will gladly look ridiculous, especially if it makes them more comfortable and understand what I am trying to get them to do. I'll also lean into the cosplayer's strengths, and if a cosplayer knows how to pose, I'll let them do the work. Like, I'll still give them direction, but I can very quickly tell when somebody knows how to pose well, and then I can say, all right, basically when you hear the shutter click, change your pose, and they can do it. So, a couple of examples here. Let's see how well these play. So this first one is my friend Lexi. You can tell that she knows how to pose. I can give no direction, and she can, whenever that shutter hits, she is able to go into another pose. You can tell the variety of the poses that she can do. And some people are good like that. But you'll notice that some of the things, like the transitions are subtle. So she might do something like this. She might go into like a completely different pose. But that's one moment where it's like, okay, you know how to pose. I don't need to give you as much direction. The other one, Jasmine, Cutie Pie Sensei, she knows how to pose. But this example here is actually, you won't be able to hear this very well. But this is me giving direction. So I am positioning Jasmine. I am telling her with my hands, all right, look this way, move your hand a little bit this way, that sort of thing. And she's able to follow that. I am able to see the back of the camera. The cosplayer does not see that, so they have no idea what's happening. So it's up to me to be able to like say that. I also showed her the back of the camera, like, hey, this was good. Take a look at that. And you can sort of see what the shot looked like right there. So that's part of that feedback, where it's like, I know the shot's good. You'll probably like the shot. Take a look at this. And they start building that confidence. Like, you start establishing that rapport. So, all right, so let's talk about posing from head to toe. So I'm going to go more into the details about just like body positioning and all that. And quick time check, how are we doing? 218, great, doing great. So starting with the head, one of the big things that when I was coming up in photography, like especially lifestyle fashion, was this idea of like, when you're standing, forehead out, so you're pushing your forehead out, chin down, because that elongates the neck. It's a little bit more flattering. If you kind of avoid any double chin issues when you sort of puts that chin out, forward, down, or whatever order that came in. But that's one of the things that when I started out, that was a huge thing. Now, candidly, do I do that? I do not. Because again, I am a natural light photographer. So I am very, very dependent and very particular about light. Where the sun is, understanding where the sun is, where the light source is. So there are going to be times where I have to say, all right, chin up to the light source because I want to get rid of any of the shadows under the eyes, any of the harsh shadows, harsh lines, that sort of thing. Now, a head tilt, that can tell the audience like who the character is or what they are feeling. So you can sort of see in that one example there, head tilt up, eyes closed, that's sort of like almost like that reflective sort of look. The tilt to the side, notice how the mood completely changes. So when you're posing, you do a head tilt this way, head tilt this way, head tilt up, close eyes. Notice how the mood changes, the personality changes immediately for that cosplayer. Now when you start adding like maybe a smirk when you do a chin like this, maybe that's like gives off like a very cocky or condescending vibe. So idea is chin up, head tilt, chin down. Tilting the head does tell you a lot about the character. Also understand your best angle as a photographer, what angles are working, and the cosplayer's best angles. There's been plenty of times where a cosplayer is like adamant, it's like photograph me on this side, and like, all right, we'll get a lot of photographs on that one angle, but you know what, we'll make it work. But understand the best side. Also understand the best side if there's like a wig. That's, you know how it is with cosplay, that one side that's like covered up. I'm like, oh wait, all right, turn your head this other way so I can actually see your eye. Now with the arms, one thing you do want to avoid, this. Legs together, hands flat, no real personality. There's this idea of like the triangle, where you create triangles with your limbs. So you'll see with this cosplayer, the triangle with the arm. Well, I'm tall enough to do this. So you'll see the triangle right there. You can sort of see a triangle right here. But also over here, triangle, triangle. So you start to have those triangles with the limbs, hands on hips, maybe a leg like this. So that way you start developing angles. Something that's a little bit more dynamic for the photo. Triangles guide the viewer's eyes. You can bring your arms in tight, though. So what I mean by that, maybe you have a shot where the arms are like very reverent like this, or maybe like this, or maybe you do something like this. So it is good that you can have your arms in tight, but you just don't want to just be flat like this. Another big thing is you can engage the props, the environment. So you're not on an island. You're not just this being that exists in nothing. I can do this. I can have a shot of me working on my computer, or me just talking on the mic. That's a shot. Like, engage the environment. And big stretch. There are certain times where I'm like, maybe do a shot like this, or cracking your knuckles, engaging your own, that's going to sound weird, engaging your own body. So, here is a quick photo shoot breakdown of that in practice. So this cosplayer, armor, this top shot, notice how he's engaging the prop. He's using the weapon. That's doing something with his hands. Same thing with this other shot. Here, he's engaging the environment. And that's giving like that mourning, the comrade sort of look. Also at the very end, you'll see him just pointing like a soldier, like, hey, we're going in this direction. So it's that idea of using the hands, understanding the character, what sort of actions would that character do, and then having the cosplayer perform actions as if they are that character. So, throwing hands. All right. So the big thing that you run into is like, what do I do with my hands? Hey, I'm going to be honest, cosplay is easy compared to other forms of photography because wedding photography, like, hold hands, I guess. Like, senior portraits, LinkedIn photos, like, fold your arms. That's all I got, man. Cosplay, you have props. You have costumes. Even if you do not have a weapon, you can figure out something to do with your hands. So, like, a lot of times I'm doing, like, neutral pose if you're doing that. You can have your hands tensed up, but not, like, clenched, unless that's the character and they're, like, that ready to fight. But also holding and using your prop. You'll see on the corner there, that cosplayer is unsheathing their weapon. That's giving them something. That's giving their hand something to do. Lightly touching the face. That's also an option. So maybe I'll just have a cosplayer do something like this. Being reverent, reflective with hand placement. So like bottom right, like that's yes, bunny ears. It's Fate. We all, if you know Fate, know the characters from Fate. Even the people who play Fate probably don't know the characters from Fate. Yes, that's from Fate. But still one of those things where the setting was like, you know what, let's go ahead and do something a little bit more reverent, more ethereal, if you will. That's giving their hand something to do. Reaching out to the camera. Sure, the hot dog hands. Who here has heard of the hot dog hands? Where it's like you hold your hand out as if you're holding a hot dog. That sort of thing. Yes, it's great, right? So yeah, you can do the hot dog hands. Or you can have your hands going through your hair. If you have hair. I do not have a lot of hair, so that does not work for me. Or hands behind head. Or hands, it's like maybe I'm just looking out into the distance. So here's a couple of shoots. So this shoot here, extensive use of the hands. You have one where the hands are very reverent. Notice the mood that you have when you look at that. You have a second one where they are casually reaching out. Again, that very beautiful, ethereal, it's Zelda. Very nice, very wonderful, very inviting. But also, kind of compare the top to this one. Notice how the mood completely shifts, where they're covered in dirt, eyes are completely bugged out. That is a look of terror, and you feel that terror. But yes, engaging the prop, engaging the environment on that right side, where they're throwing the water out because they are frustrated. You start feeling those emotions. So, another one, very creepy, very creepy. It is a gender-bent Pennywise from It. Very good with the hand placement, though. Notice what's happening, the light touching of the face, or maybe not so light touching of the face, but still, hands to the face, creating a very tense mood, very terrifying mood. Using the prop. So the prop, the red balloon is iconic. So of course, they're going to be holding that balloon, keeping their hands busy. And at the bottom there, hand in lap, still holding the balloon, but the head tilt. Notice how the head tilt also changes that vibe, or it's like it goes from terrifying to very, very unsettling. Like Pennywise is really going to come out and do horrible things. So the hips. Hips help create lines and angles, so that can make for a more interesting photo. I told you all before, so what I'd like to do is point hips this way, open up shoulders. Of course, I'm not usually having them stand flat like this, but demonstration purposes. But that helps better flatter the cosplayer. I'll also point them to shift weight from one hip to the other. A lot of things that I see when I tell people that, they kind of go start shifting, putting weight on the leg. Really, and I know it's weird, it's more like hip, just moving weight to the hip, as opposed to just doing the leg sort of thing. So it's a lot more subtle. You can also do resting the hips on a rail, on a wall. but really creating some angles there. And the hand on hip sort of thing too also works. So these are, don't skip leg day. Did I get out of order? Nope, I did not. Okay. Don't skip leg day. So let's talk about the legs. When I'm on a shoot, I will routinely tell people, widen your stance. So that's an idea of like, sometimes you have to really exaggerate with photography. The camera cannot read subtle very well. So there are going to be times where the photographer might ask you to do something like uncomfortable. And I'm not talking about like the creepy uncomfortable. I'm talking about, is the body supposed to move like that? Don't worry, I've done a cosplay shoot as a cosplayer, and I know what that feels like. Whereas they were like, bend your knees more. Like, okay, are you sure? Are we done? Legs burning. And look at the photos like, oh yeah, that sounds about right. So like, widen out the stance. Or again, shift that weight to one hip. Shift weight to one leg. So what I mean by that is maybe it's going to be like a wide stance. They're shifting weight forward. Maybe they have like a sword like this, going across the body like this, something like that. So that's what I mean by bending your knees, leaning forward, or sometimes I'm just telling them to bend their knees a little bit, as you can see in that bottom picture. But for legs together, again, don't really want necessarily flat, unless that character is very, very military, very proper. Then that might make more sense. But consider having like their feet together, crossing, or crossing, that sort of thing. Again, giving those angles, giving the direction, giving that change. So like, and also just like one foot in front of the other. Of course, balance becomes an issue at that point, but that's something you have to sort of work with. I see you laughing over there. It's like, you know, another photographer up there or up in front. So this is some examples of feet stances. You'll see the bent knee, the rogue right there. Notice how hips or the legs are wide, but the hip is popped. So it's not necessarily like the leg is getting moved. It's more so like resting on that hip. For the males, same sort of principle, but for a male photographer or like male cosplayers, have that thumb in the belt loop or arms folded. Very, I guess, I'd say male cosplayers, male presenting, or if it's a character that's male, masculine, or not even male, masculine, I should say. Going forward, just like very broad. Yes.
So if you were, say, directing a cosplayer who is AFAB,
Yep.
But it's like as a male character,
Yep.
Which is what I typically do, would you typically pose them a little bit closer to a male character?
Yes. I mean, it's really about the character at that point. Like, unless the cosplayer is like, I want this sort of look, I feel more comfortable with this sort of look, then it's like, all right, thanks for letting me know. Let me aim for that particular look. But at this point, when it comes to like I said, really it's about the character. How would the character interact with the world and engage with the world? So that makes sense? Okay. But on the right corner, that was like a walking shot. So it's really just like one foot in front of the other, walking towards the camera. Facial expressions. That's going to really set the tone as well. So the face can tell us everything we need to know about a character. Is that character happy, whimsical, reflective? Are they heroic or are they unhinged? Like, again, the toga example. Facial expressions can be exaggerated. So you can go really hard. You can go JoJo posing. Yeah, y'all know what I'm talking about. But they can also be subtle. When I say you don't have to be a world beater, you don't have to completely change everything every time you change the pose. You don't have to go bombastic. You can go subtle in terms of facial expressions. You can go for a slight smirk. Then you can transition to a larger smirk. Then you can transition to a smile, that sort of thing. For me, it's like walking the cosplayer through some facial expressions to see what works and get a feel for what's working. Some of us can't smile very well. Can I smile on camera very well? I can't. And I'm good with that. I'm better looking off stoically into the distance. So that's sort of my strength. So I want to help the cosplayer get to that point of feeling out their strengths. And also be aware of any sensitivities that the cosplayer may have. They might be very self-conscious about their teeth. They might be self-conscious about a mark or how they look when they try to smirk. It just might, and when they start getting self-conscious, you start feeling that in the shoot. You start seeing that in the photos. So being very sensitive about those, being aware of those sensitivities and really working around those sensitivities, playing to their strengths. So a primer on facial expressions. 2:35, okay, we're making good time. So again, you can walk through a number of facial expressions. You can smirk. Of course, you can smirk with confidence. You can smirk with evil intent. It's really based off of what that character is doing, what they look like, what their personality is. Another option, and one thing I do tell people, is slightly part your lips. So you're keeping your teeth closed, but the lips are parted, a small amount. That gives a little bit of tension in that photo, in that cosplayer, in that look. Then you go like half smile, big smile, smile with teeth, neutral expression. Compare and combine those with head tilts. A smirk straight on is very different from a smirk with a head tilt. A smile straight on is very different from a smile with a head tilt. So those work in conjunction with each other. Again, you don't have to be a world beater. You can change things up ever so slightly. So, sort of a photo shoot breakdown here with this Echo cosplayer. So you'll see a lot of, I guess, that neutral sort of look. Even though it's a very neutral expression, with the rest of how the body is positioned, their body is positioned, you sort of feel that sort of power that Echo has. You start to feel like, oh, this guy means business. Of course, if you go to that second photo right there, you sort of see the head tilted a little bit and that kind of that smirk. If you've seen Arcane, you sort of know that exact scene and you know that exact vibe. You see the smile, and if you can't really see it, but that's actually a broom that is hitting the Jinx cosplayer, hitting, not actually hitting. Photography is a lie. No one was hit with a broom. But we were in the parking deck at Katsucon, because as you do, when you go to Katsucon, you find the dankest garage possible and do photos in it. And the Echo cosplayer had an idea to, let's recreate the scene with a broom. And we're like, you know what? Yes, we're going to recreate that scene with a broom. But sitting down, head up, and again, that head tilt right there. Another photo, another shoot breakdown. This is my friend Ash. And I'll say Ash is probably one of the best at facial expressions that I've ever worked with, because she is able to really quickly go into different facial expressions based off of that character. And you'll see, like a Zelda, that very ethereal, otherworldly being, very reflective. You'll also see the Kate Bishop. You can feel that manic energy in her face, how the eyes got big, that smile, that enthusiasm, maybe a little bit too much enthusiasm, really carrying through. You'll also see Ellie from The Last of Us, and notice the look in Ellie's eyes, how there is sadness, there is not necessarily terror, but like This is a terrible world to live in. In Spider-Gwen, you'll see that sort of like very heroic, a big smile there. So that just goes to like really talk through or show you the power of the facial expression. Changing from a smile to a smirk, going for the pouty lips, the sad eyes, and all that. So, it's all in the eyes. So, the eyes do help direct attention to the photo. Eyes can set the mood. Again, are they closed in that reverent manner? Are the eyes engaged with the camera, with the audience? Are the eyes looking off in the distance like you're Superman, looking slightly above, slightly by the camera? Are they telling the viewer that the character is happy, determined, sad, ready to cause chaos? And really, cosplay is fun because you can exaggerate the eyes as needed. That said, one thing that I've been told is this idea of nose goes. Do I follow it all the time? No, but it's a good piece of advice. But really this idea of wherever your nose is pointing, keep your eyes in that same direction. That way you're not getting too much whites of the eyes when looking off camera. Because sometimes it's very easy to look, and the camera's right here, you're going to see a lot more white as opposed to looking straight ahead and getting more of the pupils. So, again, eyes can set the mood. What I like doing is maybe having the cosplayer engage the camera some. When I'm having them look off camera. Oh, I see a hand. Okay, that's actually body language is going to be what you need, because there are plenty of times where you're in a mask, you're in full armor. Unfortunately, I didn't get to put slides about body language in this, but really, yeah, it's really about the body language. If the eyes are not visible, if the lips are not visible, at that point, you're going to be heavily reliant on the character's body language, using whatever that character traits are and exaggerating that movement. So you still get that same vibe. But that's a very good question. Yeah. So, eyes. So where should we look? Again, looking off camera, looking above the camera, looking past the camera, but like not directly into the camera. We can have them, the cosplayer, or you as a cosplayer, look down the body line, where it's just like, sort of like, shot like that. Again, eyes closed, with that idea, when your eyes closed and your chin up, that's one mood. When your eyes are closed and your head's tilted, maybe it feels like you're kind of going into like a stretch. Or if your head's down and your head, like eyes are closed, that really comes off as that you're feeling defeated. The smize, who here has heard of the smize and the smolder? Yeah, like smile with the eyes. Can I smile with my eyes? No. Can I describe it? Yes, I can smolder a little bit. Also, again, engaging the prop of the costume or the environment. So you can have them engage, or looking at the sword, looking at their gloves. Just got to be careful not to have their chin too far down, because you'll start to like get too much of the top of their heads. Might start getting like double chins or weird folds or anything like that. So chin out, look down. Again, photography is a lie, so they might not necessarily be looking at the prop, but it looks like they're looking at the prop. And nose goes. All right, movement and sitting. Let's talk through those two things. I just saw a amazing Padme cosplayer go through the hallway. I got really distracted. I was like, huh, that's Padme. All right, movement and sitting. Okay, having a seat, that gives you a lot more options for photos, let's be real. Also, kind of gives cosplayers a chance to rest, especially if they're in a heavy costume. It's like, I've been standing for 30 minutes, this hurts. Have a seat. And they're like, oh, thank God. Like, I will gladly grab a seat there. So, but it is important to consider, can the cosplayer even sit down first? Certain armor, certain costumes are like, nah, man, I'm in it to win it. I'm standing here. It's like, all right, that's fair. But also, what is their range of motion? Especially if they have like weird hip plates. They can only sit at one angle. And if that's it, all right, that's fine. We'll keep you sit at that one angle and try to get some shots. But again, the type of character is going to dictate how they sit. The type of shoot is going to dictate how they sit. Whoops. Like masculine type characters, they tend to take up more space. So you've heard of the man spread. So I just have people like, or just like sort of slouch a little bit without like being really slouchy, but more relaxed or more tense like this. You might have a feminine character. They might try to like be a little bit more prim and proper, legs crossed like this, maybe ankles crossed like this. They might be a little bit more back straight, but it really depends again on that character, what type of vibe that they have. But that does give you a lot more, like plenty of options here as to like how to go about posing. Another thing that you can do is just like have knees sort of together. Again, creating those angles, those triangles where you can. So, all right, so here we have another shoot breakdown. Different types of, I guess, sitting, if you will. And you'll sort of see just, they can be sitting on a ledge. They can be sitting in a chair. They can be sitting in a rail or on stairs, or even on a wall. Consider that sitting down. But again, a lot of like, notice the triangles that are happening from some of those shots. Notice how the cosplayer is also sort of engaging either their headphones, and having a prop in hand, looking off in the distance, what sort of vibe you get with that. So again, cross ankles, cross legs, bring legs together. You can cross at the hips, or not the hips, but the thighs. You can cross at the calves. You can cross at the ankles, that sort of thing. And also don't forget the hands. Having the hands in the, like legs crossed in your lap, that's great. If you're sitting something like this, maybe, of course I'm slouching a lot, but poor posture. Having your hands in your lap or your elbows in your lap or something like this. So, remember the character. Are they more prim and proper? I was doing a photo shoot with a Trinity from the Matrix. That has a very sort of vibe, very like legs or very feet crossed, boom. Some characters, again, might be like this. So understand that character. Understand how they're going to pose. And when in doubt, drop a dope mixtape. So, I don't know what else to say. Other than, again, notice that the triangles are happening. Of course, if you're doing a lot of Spider-Man shoots, that's all they do. I do a lot of Spider-Man shoots, so I know crouching pretty well. But even if it is somebody from Persona 5, they can still do the crouch, and that sort of thing. You notice the sheer difference between the heroes, and then, I guess the Persona 5 characters are still heroes, but in a very different sort of heroic way. So here's a breakdown of everything in practice. even when sitting, you can get a lot of different moods. Even when crouching, you can get a lot of different moods. So you'll see the crouch on the left, hands in front, sort of looking off, that slight head tilt, looking off in the distance. Ask yourself, what does that make you feel? Or ask yourself, what does it feel like this cosplayer or this character is experiencing? Sitting, notice how the knees are brought close to the chest. There's still the triangles that are still happening, but you don't have to have your legs just flat out. You can bring your legs to your chest, and that does create a sort of mood. You have a big stretch with the legs crossed. That's also a sort of mood, sort of a lot more relaxed, a lot more casual, a lot more, hey, we're taking a break. Yeah. And of course, that one leaning on the rail. Notice how the cosplayers are sort of leaning on the rail, looking at the camera. I mean, what do you feel when you see the character sort of like leaning on the rail, looking pensively at the camera? They feel like they're in pain, that there's something, and if you've seen Across the Spider-Verse, you feel and understand that there is that tension within the character. So for me, it is trying to bring that out, even in something simple as a seated pose. And we're almost at the end. Movement. Character movement depends on the character's mobility. Depending on the cosplay, that character can either perform the movement such as walking or jumping. So I will have a character or a cosplayer actually doing a walk or actually jump. Now I will admit those photos aren't fair because that is a stunt woman. So like that was easily one of the best Spider-Gwen shots I've ever done, but that's because she had the physicality because she did stunts. So on the flip side, be very careful when you jump. I've seen things, man. Like people get injured, tear ACLs, and it's like, Yeah, funny story. At WonderCon, I had a friend who unprompted did a jump in the Spider-Man sort of cosplay shoot. Completely ACL gone. Just like, and we're all like, why would you jump? Like, you are nearly 40 years old. Like, don't do that. But yeah, the other bit is make it look like they're performing the movement. They don't have to run. And chances are they can't run. Chances are even out of cosplay, you can't run. I can barely run and look good doing it. So really it's about fooling the camera, fooling the audience, making it look like they are running. So like performing the movement, very key with the camera settings on this one. I say 500, chances are it's going to be higher in terms of the shutter speed. But fast shutter click, yeah, I just said something that was high-ish. But usually I try to go for like 1,000th of a second, 2,000th of a second, or 1/2,000th of a second. 500th, you probably can do it, but depends on how fast the movement is. Another big thing is high speed or low speed continuous shutter clicks. If I had my camera out, how much time do we have? We have about 8 minutes, so I can do this, and we're almost at the end of the presentation. So, one sec, and you'll hear it. This monstrosity of a camera. If your camera has that ability to do high speed or low speed continuous shutter, one shot. Of course, now I can't find it. Well, now that I'm put pressure, oh, there it is. It's on high speed. Oh, they're going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. Perfect B-roll. But you, I have no idea what I took a picture of. But you hear how fast it's going. That needs to happen so it can capture a movement, because it has to be fast. But more so because if it's a fast movement, it's going to be over very quick. So you need to be able to freeze the action and freeze the right moment. The cosplayer will go through that movement at a natural pace. Yes?
Shooting so fast, since you're using natural light, do you mess with your ISO any, or?
It depends on what the light source is and how well that light source is. If it's that fast, then yes, I might jack up the ISO if it's a poorly lit environment. But if it's a well lit environment, I don't really need to worry about it. I tend to also shoot with a very low aperture, so that can compensate quite a bit. Getting the real camera stuff here, y'all. But yeah, it's that in my light workshop tomorrow, I will talk about that. So yes, for jumping photos, watch out for injuries. Already said that. Have the movement directed at the camera or away from the camera, so you don't mix it up. See what works best, and keep the costume's movement in mind. Their range of motion, they might not be able to do much, or they might be able to do a lot. So, like, take a look at that photo at the top right. That was a really flowy dress, and we noticed that immediately how flowy. And she does a little bit of dance, so it was really a lot of twirling, and you start to see how well the dress was moving. So I put it at high-speed continuous, very fast shutter speed, and it was like boom, 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 and just her twirling and capturing that movement. The Mandos there was just them steadily walking towards the camera, and I was just trailing them back to get that cinematic sort of shot. Pretending to move, photography is a lie. Nothing's real. So I don't have to have them actually do the movement. And we got like 4 minutes, so we're wrapping up. So really, it's important for me to make the pose look real. It's very easy, like, to go into an action shot, and you have this sword in this really elaborate position, but if the legs are straight, that looks kind of weird. So you have to be mindful of what the knees would look like if you're going into that sword pose, instead of having it just straight. They're running, make it look like they're running. What does that look like? Sometimes I will have the cosplayer, y'all are good, we're hitting that time. But what pretending to run looks like might be hop. That's it. Just doing this over and over again. That way it looks like they're running. The camera cannot tell they are not actually running. Or on the right, that far image, really all that's happening there is their twin is actually holding that boomerang off screen, off camera. It looks like it's being thrown. The legs are giving us convincing action, so therefore it looks authentic, even though you look out there in the public and you're like, what the heck are those nerds doing? Again, photography's a lie. And last slide, help, I can't move. It happens. Who here has a big build that's like, I can't do anything? Yep. So big armor builds or bulky costumes do mean limited mobility. As a photographer, you kind of have to work around that as best you can. Check with the cosplayer's mobility. See how well they can move. How well can you lift your arms up? Oh, no, I can only go here. Can you bend your knees? Nope, you can't. Okay. Literally, what can you do? So once you have that mobility in place, it's all right, let's do some simple poses based off of how mobile you are. Yes?
Would you do that for, like, you were talking about stoic characters that don't really, like,
Yep.
pose much. Would you do the same kind of thing for a character like that?
Yep, same thing. If they don't pose much, it's like, all right, stand there. I mean, we'll still have, like, arms out a little bit because it can't be just stoic like this. It might be stoic like this, right? But yeah, really aim for those simple poses, get what you can, but also aim for detail shots. Getting close. like you're a wedding photographer. If the 5-foot rule is not in place, of course. If there are fine details you want to capture, get in close, get in tight, get portraits, something simple so that you can build a lot of photos out. So it is 2:59. We went right to the end. I will be in the back if you have any questions or anything. But yeah, it was a pleasure. And yeah, come to the natural light session. Will we go outside? Probably not long if we do. But I will be walking through every single light scenario that I can think of and helping you guide you through my process for lighting a photo. So, yep.